Obviously, we did a SEC video a couple days ago. Kind of gave our thoughts on kind of watching their die in 4K. I am generally curious about how the rest of the media team is going to react to it. And so when I saw this got posted, the video is by Crane and Company. Is SEC football overrated? Going to give it a listen and see where I agree and where I disagree.
SEC doesn't have a team in the national championship for the third year in a row. Is the dominance done? Is the run over? Is everybody chanting SEC, SEC at the end of games really now just second rate? Let's get into it. Is the SEC...
And these guys did go over to On 3, and I'm gonna get with Sam at some point and talk about it because I do think it's funny. I think the cultural ball media space is in a really weird place, and I'm still kind of working through my thoughts and like trying to figure out like why it feels so weird to me. And I'll get there. Maybe it feels weird just because the sport itself feels weird. Who knows?
SEC's dominant run in college football officially over now that there's dominant. Is the SEC's dominant run in college football officially over now that there's no SEC team playing in the national title game? Once again, welcome to Crane and Cone. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. This episode is presented to you by our friends over at Good Ranchers. There's no debate on what the best meat delivery company is. We can talk about conferences, but you
got to speed it up.
Go to goodranchers.com, use that promo code BOOSTER. You save some money and you eat like a king or a queen, because we know we have some ladies.
I don't know how to explain this, but he looks like a character from Invader Zim.
To watch the show. We appreciate you. David Cone, former Michigan quarterback. Wonder what he thinks about the Big Ten. It's going to be interesting. Blaine Crane, from Western State, Colorado, wide receiver. Anytime he tries to think it's interesting. But guys, I think, and we've talked about this before as we've kind of watched the SEC go from king of the castle, which I think it's hard to argue that when you look at the national champions that we've had here in the past. I mean, I had it pulled up. I was looking at it earlier. You go from just starting in 2014, Ohio State won it then, but then you had Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Alabama, Georgia. Then we've started to go on this run, and we can go back even further, really, from 08 and beyond. Auburn won 2010. We can talk about Florida. But the SEC was on a pretty dominant run overall from a national championship perspective. But Cone, when we're looking at how to calculate what the best conference is, to me, there's got to be more than just who won the national championship. When you look at
It's so funny because like he's an Auburn guy, just for some background context. And when you like had this conversation previously, like Alabama fans, or not Alabama fans, SEC fans, and naturally be like, well, we keep winning the championship, was like their number one reference point. And it's not until things started shifting to where we started to hear other arguments like, oh, like draft picks, oh, like top to bottom. And the top to bottom thing is like honestly gonna have to do with brand bias, and brand bias gets inflated when one part of the country likes football more than the other part of the country. So I don't know. It's funny, like hearing, before we even get into it, him talk about, oh, well, it's more than just national championships. It's more.
how to judge a conference overall or judge them against each other. Are you looking at this thing in pillars? Is there one thing that stands above the rest of you? Kind of how do you view it?
Well, I'm just viewing it how the SEC is talking.
Jesus Christ. Mix your audio correctly. Shit has 200,000 subscribers. Like, yo, like you're on 3 production. Jesus. Came in so hot. That's so loud. Do you guys not have a producer? Does anyone hear the difference in audio? Like you in the middle, he doesn't hear himself talk during the show. You in the middle, you hear them both. If you don't look down in the private chat and text somebody, hey, he's real loud.
Talked about it for the last 15 years, which is we've had the national champion and we've had a lot of different schools win national championships, and that's what makes us the best conference. Now, when I was coming out of high school to go play college football and I was trying to decide between Michigan or let's say Mississippi State, I wasn't thinking about conference. I still don't view college football through the lens of a conference. I view it through the lens of individual programs. I decided to go play at Michigan because I picked that school, not because I thought the Big Ten conference was better than the SEC.
That's super dishonest and intellectually incorrect if that's the case. I mean, like, we view this thing always through the lens of a conference. If not, you would see far more players going to G5 schools. Like, here we go. Like, if we didn't look at it through conferences, a place like Boise State, who's had success over year, generally speaking, would get more commits because we didn't look at it through conference. But like, if you're a player, you absolutely, if you're going to commit somewhere, you absolutely look at it through some form of conference, because it's not just where you play at; it's who you play against. That's a part of your. That's a part of like how you decide where you want to end up. So that is dishonest. But you know, he never has an original thought, and when he does try to have an original thought, you get some bullshit like that.
was from South Georgia. That's 1,000 miles away from home for me. But again, I think what's been most surprising with the SEC's championship drought is not just that it hasn't had the champion these last 3 years, but it hasn't even had a school in the national championship game at a time when you've expanded and added Texas and Oklahoma.
Good. He maybe he was just saying the thing he didn't think about conferences, so he could try to sneak in these Big Ten talking points, and everyone would just let him have it. Because this show is primarily like SEC kind of country. There's a lot of Auburn. I don't know, man. Like, that's good. Keep sneaking in the talking points. Next, talk about Vandy, Iowa. Talk about Texas, Ohio State. Like, keep sneaking it in there. Keep sneaking it. Talk about bowl records. Hit all of the Big Ten talking points.
Oklahoma to the conference. Now, historically, hasn't been a big deal, right? Like from the beginning of the BCS to when I went to play at Michigan, some of the best matchups were USC versus Texas in the Natty, right? You had Ohio State versus Miami, Florida State taking on Michael Vick and Virginia Tech. I think the SEC had Tennessee and LSU. But then what happens? They go on that run starting in 2006 with Florida, and they won 13 of 17. I mean, that's a level of dominance that I don't think we're going to see in this sport again, because the last 3 years, what have happened? One, Nick Saban retired. He accounted for half of those, okay? Yeah. Two, the transfer portal is open every year. Players can leave. And three, and most importantly, these name, image, and likeness payments are changing the dynamic for a lot of these schools. And it's one thing when it's Michigan and it's Ohio State, but now you're looking at Indiana might be the national championship, or Miami, who hasn't won a national title in 25 years. The dynamic has changed. And my advice for the SEC is get back to being the best conference on the football field instead of just talking about being the best conference on the football field.
What Blaine?
B-. Good points. Good points.
I mean, same question to you, man. I mean, just some of the pillars I've written down are obviously who wins the national championship.
Yeah, that matters.
How many teams make the postseason?
Okay, maybe he's quiet. He's got to do better with his mic, and he's the fucking host, dude. Shit.
College football playoff, really, if we're being honest. How well the teams did in non-conference games, because that's one way that we judged it. Then the NFL draft. How many players get drafted? I think to me it's a recipe, not just one or two things. But where do you fall?
How much do y'all measure bowl games? Are those something you measure highly? Or
yeah, you're playing a football game, in my opinion. I mean, you're playing a football game, and the SEC goes.
Here we go, man. Dude, Cone, don't be a bitch. Stand in the paint. Tell him. For a while there, you guys counted bowl games till Big Ten started winning them. Then you act like they don't matter. And even when SEC teams lost back in the day, it was like, oh, they didn't want to play. You have to hold his feet to the fire. He's shaking his head. He's nodding his head. My brother in Christ, Auburn needs the bowl games. Yes, we count bowl games.
Goes 2-7 this year. Again, it wouldn't be a big deal. It wouldn't be a big deal, except we're hearing from one conference that we're better than everyone else. Well, then you got to go win those games.
Especially the middle of the conference. I mean, you go look at that Iowa-Vanderbilt game. Everybody was playing in that football game.
Mm-hmm. True.
Everybody. And Vanderbilt was a very close team to go make the playoff. And look, Iowa gave a lot of really good teams a run for their money this year, obviously, if you watch them play. But they beat that Vanderbilt team. Same thing with Tennessee. I think a lot of it has to do with the SEC, not only being at the top, but how good is the middle of your conference. And I feel like the SEC from the middle of their conference has always been weighed higher than what they should have. I mean, teams like South Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi State, the middle is not there anymore. Auburn, it's just not there. And I think that's one of the ways you weigh your conference. I really do. And you look at the Nick Saban effect. Obviously, he's gone. And this all changed, in my opinion, when NIL and transfer portal.
And the thing is, Nick Saban leaving your conference, that should strengthen the middle of your conference, because you got to think like, okay, like now that all the talent isn't getting hoarded to Alabama, you know, some of it's going to go to Georgia, of course, some of it's going to go to Texas, but the dispersion of talent should happen when your dynasty monster leaves, and so the middle conference should be better. But it's like, okay, like that's fine, except for the reason the dynasty was there was because Saban was the best coach in the heart of the place that had the more just a ton of talent, because like that area of the country has a lot of talent, and he was a Big Ten coach through and through.
And Nick Saban left. Look, it's tough to keep depth on your roster. If you have a good player and he is second or third string, he is not going to stay there. If you're in the Nick Saban thing, like Trent Richardson's not your third string.
Like that affects everybody the same, though. Like in that theory,
sure,
then
but
why
the
isn't
SEC
the
used
Big
to be
12
able to
worse than
hoard
what the
talent.
Big 12's been?
It wasn't about hoard. He's close. My guy in the middle is close. He's close. It's not just about the hoarding the talent. It's the SEC was able, to me, my thought is that SEC was able to afford recruiting misses because they recruited so much talent, and so development didn't become a premium. Now, in this portal era, development is such a premium, and evaluation. It's like, can you quickly develop and evaluate guys who have plus traits that can go win? And the guy that's the very best at that is SIG, and one of the places that was the very best at that was Michigan. A place that was really, really good at that was Ohio State, and that's why those are the teams that have been on a crazy run. Even Miami, identifying players, because you couldn't just recruit over guys year in and year out. Like, that kind of shit matters. And it's not just about hoarding the talent. It's about, can you develop talent? And instead of recruiting over guys being a crutch, can you maximize talent when you get it?
SEC used to be able to hoard talent, and now you cannot do that. You cannot do that anymore. Those days are over with. It's over with.
I don't disagree with that, but what I think when I look at it is NIL from a hoarding talent standpoint, the ability to, not just the ability for a school to allocate money to players, but people being willing to give their money for their school to allocate money to players. Think about this. How many times in the past, when people were getting paid under the table, did rich boosters or this here, this rich guy over here say, you know what, I don't want to build us a new weight room. I would just love to give $5 million for you to go get players. Well, now you can do that. Now, they paid him under the table, but most people weren't willing to take that risk to get into trouble. To look what happened to Nevin Shapiro and some of these other guys. So it opened the door for, you look at like Texas Tech and some of these other places, for people to match the SEC from that standpoint. But Blaine, to your point about the middle of the conference in the SEC and from top to bottom, the SEC not being as good as what it has been, I agree with that. To me, that's where the fall off has been. The fall off has been that the SEC may have.
The joke has also been, like, the middle's never actually been good. Like, I think, like, fans, there's this thing that happens, like, with the SEC quote-unquote brotherhood that this guy likes to pretend like isn't there. Like, when Alabama's winning all these titles, like, you will sit there and be like, yeah, like, the middle of the conference is really good. Well, the middle of the conference was never really that good. They would have teams that would, like, pop up every now and again. But the middle conference was never that good. And they were able to excuse it because they would have a loss to the national champion. Now, the middle, the middle conference was never that good. They just got a pass because they were in there with Alabama is really what it was.
They have not had the best team that year. Because I think the argument that the Big Ten has been top heavy is more true than the SEC.
I agree with that.
100% not true. Why would you fucking concede that? That's absurd. The Big Ten has had far more teams compete for a conference championship than the SEC has. Now, the SEC has had the blip teams go win it, but primarily, I mean, I believe when I did the math, it's like 3 or 4 schools have competed for SEC championships like before this last year for the last 10 years. A bunch of, and also, you do not concede that at all. That is not the case. It's just simply not the case. So frustrated because it's not true.
Years. Like, I think the Big Ten's more top heavy, but that seems to be changing. And the SEC's argument was, well,
how can the Big Ten be more top heavy when the most dominant team in the Big Ten over the last 10 years hasn't won a Big Ten championship since 2020? That's what I'm saying. Like, these people don't fucking think. They just, like, regurgitate the same talking points they've seen from whoever on Twitter instead of actually thinking about it. Like, if you look at teams that have had a chance to compete for the Big Ten versus the SEC, it's a lot different. And also, like playoff teams, too. Like, in the playoff era, like, even when it was a 14 playoff, I think you had more different Big Ten teams than you had SEC teams make the 14.
Look, you go top to bottom in this league, you run through a conference schedule in this league, it's a different gauntlet than everybody else's because the middle is stronger than your middle. The bottom is as strong as what your middle is. That is not the case anymore. Blaine, I agree with you on that.
That was never actually the case. It was always brand, not actual football.
I look at South Carolina and like, what's the difference between South Carolina and Illinois, for being honest? Like, I can go through this list of teams that have been.
Illinois is way better, for being honest.
Kind of middle tier, and I'm looking at the Big Ten now, and it's starting to look like it's getting healthier than the SEC. And yes, Cone, to your point, the SEC still does beat its chest like it runs college football like it used to, but they don't. The SEC does not run college football anymore. You can sit here and say, oh, well, ESPN bias, this, that, and the other. Well, if it's so biased, how has their ass not been in a national championship game in the last 3 years? Now, I think there's more talent per capita.
ESPN bias? I don't understand. The ESPN bias has been like SEC slanted. I don't understand where he was going with that, unless there's like this idea that there's a bias towards the Big Ten, which would be insane.
Capita, Cone, in the SEC when you look at the NFL draft, but at the end of the day, the Big Ten has found a way to catch up a little bit in that, and I think the coaching is better in the Big Ten overall, Dave.
All All right, here we go, dude. I'll just say it. This came out after the Josh Pate show came out about the Big Ten having better coaches, and like I feel really early on that. Like I've been saying that since I was in a little office building in West Akron doing radio, doing the show at lunch with Zach. I've been saying that, and it's funny because like as soon as Pate says it, all of a sudden like these guys want to come out of the woodwork and say it. It's like, okay, have you ever actually had an original idea? Or are you just out here just like purely for the vibes? And to say it like with that much conviction, like okay, like that's been a take that like plenty of people, myself included, have had for a while now, and like you have ignored it. And then Pate says it literally like 2 days before this. Oh, this is I think my issue with the media, with On3 media, is that instead of like creating like here we go. When I say they don't have diversity, I'm not just talking about like race and people. I'm talking about like process. It's like as soon as Pate says something, all of them echo the same exact thing that Pate said. And I don't know if it's because they're fans of Pate or if they think that like the way to be successful in this industry is like the way that Pate does it. But it's like as soon as he says it, they all start like champing it like crazy.
I really believe that.
Well, just to follow up on your initial question, I mean, I do not believe that just because you have the national champion from that particular conference, that made you the best or the deepest or the most competitive. Again, I'm just going off of what SEC fans and SEC Network has said for basically the last 20 years.
Address his point, dude.
At this standpoint. Let's get into the pillars that you laid forth a little bit, because I think there's one. First of all, the NFL, to me, the players really care about that. Obviously, that I saw college football as a pipeline to the NFL. That was something that I wanted to do, but I don't think that really measures in to how good you are as a program or a conference. Because
100% agree. That's a good take. It's a way to push back against kind of the norm.
I'll give you just an anecdotal example here. From a small town in the South, we used to play teams from Atlanta all the time where their entire roster was signed to Division I schools, and we would run through them because they weren't good teams, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's a difference between having star players who are going to play at the next level and having really good teams, and that's an example of like what Indiana's doing right now. But I think there is another pillar that I think you could add to your list, Jake, which
he's doing all right. He's doing all right. He's not embarrassing the Big Ten. He's going to bat, holding them up. It doesn't really feel like quite the debate though that I thought it was going to be.
Is the television viewership and the amount that people actually
that doesn't fucking matter
want to watch these games. I mean, just for instance, you're talking about the Big Ten being top heavy, despite the fact they may have 3 national champions from their league in 3 consecutive years. I actually agree with that point. There's some middle of the pack or even bottom of the pack SEC games that I get more excited about when they come on a Saturday.
That has to do with brand bias, not quality of football. Fuck, right? As soon as I compliment him, he like goes on like this dumbass shit rant.
And the viewership also supports that. And to the point about the middle of the pack or the bottom of the pack not being as competitive, I still can go watch a Mississippi State team this past year go beat Arizona State, who was like leading for the Big 12 championship for a lot of that season. So that part of it is still there. Again, it's just the dynamic and the perspective has to change after you won 13 of 17 national titles.
Well, and in the comments, I want people to put down if you have a formula or a recipe that you go about and try and determine which team is the best conference. And just to point out, we're not talking about one of these conferences being bad. All right, this is not an argument over whether like the SEC is bad now or like the Big Ten was bad back then. This is an argument over who is the best and how you get there. That's the part that I find the most interesting, because you do have people that think it's a singular thing. You win the Natty, this or the other, or if you have multiple teams win the Natty in a 5-year span, I believe it's a recipe. But Blaine, as much as and look, we hear the SEC chants. We hear the people making fun of the SEC chants. Just from my own personal experience, and I was born and raised in Auburn, Alabama, I would say that probably 85% of SEC fans do not give a shit about what the other SEC teams do.
I saw him peddle this on the timeline, and this could not be further from the truth. Like, this is a big fucking joke. The SEC, they do the thing where they like talk shit to each other. But then, like, when it comes to, like, outside, it's like the SEC acts like a group of brothers, right? It's like we can make fun of each other and make fun of each other's brothers, but if someone from the outside makes fun of the brother, it's like, no, fuck that. Like, you'll be fucked up. I've seen him parrot this, like, the SEC doesn't actually care about conference pride, and it's the absolute singular biggest sack of shit, dishonest lie that I've heard in regards to this. Like, the SEC brotherhood is egregiously aggressive and almost world renowned to the point where, like, part of why I kind of went on this tear was because people at least on the Big Ten front of things, didn't really have this kind of conference pride. I was trying to bring back a sense of conference pride because I think that's important, and like the Big Ten needs more like good media voices, which they don't really have right now. They're starting to get there though, like Juck on Bucks, my dog, like College Ball with Sam, Wen and Tangwall. Like we're starting to get some of those like good Big Ten voices, and now all of a sudden it's not fun for SEC people because they get like checked at the door. But this idea that there has not been like this weird like sword fighting brothership with SEC country is just gaslighting at its finest, I guess is what I'll call it.
Do if they win or lose, to be honest. I really don't. Outside of you may be needing help for an SEC team to win a non-conference game or something like that. I've never, if you're an Auburn
all the ESPN articles, all the talk, oh, tough day for the Big Ten
fan, you never want Alabama to win. You don't want LSU. You don't want LSU to win. You don't want Georgia to win. I've never seen somebody say, you know what? I don't really root for a team. I'm just an SEC fan. But you do have at the end of the games, just to be a dick, just saying SEC.
Okay, we're just keep it being like the whole like no one doesn't have a team and just SEC whatever, like that's pretty like disgustingly egregious. Yeah, everybody has a college football team. Everyone that watches the sport has a team. So what is he on?
SEC, and you hear them on the TV. I mean, Blaine, you grew up
Isn't
the way
every
I did. Like,
conference
I don't
like
think
that,
Ole
though?
Miss is out here rooting for Mississippi State.
Isn't every conference like that though?
I think it really is. That's
Not
what
in my
sometimes-
experience.
Yeah.
Not in my. I hear from people all the time, especially from Darby Lou's side of the family. Well, I'll pull for LSU just to keep it in the conference, and I don't think that Big Ten teams do that a lot.
Thank you. They haven't done that. They're starting to do that all of a sudden, and now SEC people are like, we don't actually do that. You guys, like, literally, SEC stands for suck each other's cock, bro. Like that's because you think that you think. Oh Jesus! Thank you, bro. Keep doing the job, man. You're not great at this, but thankfully you're bringing at least your A+ game in this medium.
Yeah,
Okay.
that didn't seem fun to like. I just
Yeah.
don't.
I mean, I've
Because-
never rooted for another SEC school. I've really never met anybody who rooted for another SEC school. Maybe the only one I have
Bullshit.
rooted for was Vanderbilt, just because it's a feel-good story.
Look, a
of where
pity.
they came
The
from.
pity vote does it. I'm not saying the
I
pity
mean,
vote.
yeah, but I feel like you're still rooting for them. But it just feels like now, when it comes to SEC, the brand is stronger than the actual results on the field, and I think that shows up. And I don't see it changing. And I think y'all made a lot of great points, especially on the coaching point. I mean, you go through the Big Ten, really from top to bottom, it's just a better staff, not only head coaches, but coordinators as well. So there's a lot of pillars that you bring into this. You can look at it a lot of different ways, but at the end of the day, this all gets settled on the field, right? And it's been settled the last 3 years. And right now, the Big Ten, not only the top, but the middle is the best conference in football.
Yeah. Well, and the last caveat I want to put on my point about not rooting for the conference is like me as a fan, I don't want anybody else in my conference to do well because I want it to hurt recruiting. I want it to hurt your the way people view you right around the country to try and make your program better. I wish we could like get like a census. And I know they screwed the census up here anyway, so it probably wouldn't be that accurate. But if we could get a census of like, listen, I need you to be honest. Do you care about the rest of the teams in the conference winning? Like, is that important to you? Just to see what percent.
This is complete horseshit, dude. You know it's horseshit when you even have like players like Diego Pavia like going on podcasts talking about, we want to play against the very best, and that's the SEC. I wouldn't want to go anywhere and not play against the very best. So like to act like this whole like that this is like a made up thing in Big Ten people's head is just like peak gaslighting, and it's maybe to make your SEC fan base feel better, but it's just fucking dishonest, bro. Like it's just dishonest.
Because I think in every conference, outside of maybe the ones that have been viewed as kind of the little dog, because that can really bring you together and like galvanize you to be like, let's go show them, like Iowa State, let's go in the bowl game and really show them what the Big 12's about. Like I can understand that, but I'd love to see the numbers on that. 2026 marks 250 years of America. Yep, that's 250 years about arguing whether the SEC is still the best conference in the country. But there's no argument when it comes to who's the best meat delivery company.
No free ads.
I mean, look, last night, to be honest, ate some Wagyu patties.
OSTER to get that $25. When you're looking at the way the SEC is going to go about this in the future, do you think if Indiana were to win, Big Ten wins 3 in a row, I mean, what's the course correction here?
Mm-hmm.
What is the Greg Sankey like, okay, listen.
If there was really no rooted interest or ego when it came to like the SEC and like that whole thing, you wouldn't have there'd be such like a loud defense of the SEC from big media people year round. Like you wouldn't have there'd be arguments on the timeline about who the best conference was. If the SEC really didn't care about individual like about the conference being good, you would never hear any of those, and they would have no problem conceding that they weren't the best conference. The fact that the SEC people still don't concede that it's the best, that don't concede that the Big Ten is the best conference, shows you that they care and have pride and want their conference to be the very best. And I think that being omitted from this is maybe the crux of my frustration and dishonesty for a show like this.
Obviously, we are not doing things at an elite enough level. Like, do you go, clone Saban? Like, or and just, I don't know what is the course correction? Can you do anything?
Man, that's a great question. I want to hit
And the fact that like you're talking about like, what can the SEC do to keep back up? Again, you only do that if you care about conference and you have conference pride. So this whole idea that there is no sense of conference pride is just fucking stupid.
this from the hoarding talent standpoint that you guys were talking about a little bit ago. Because look, I'm from Georgia, so I will admit I am biased. I do think the American South has the greatest collection of college football talent in the country. And a big part of that is the passion. And that's something you can't argue against. Like the passion in the American South, I think also is like a direct pipeline to the amount of talent you have. And it's not to discredit awesome high school football states like California and like Ohio, where a bunch of talent comes from.
And like Utah too. I think Utah's a really good.
And New Jersey and outside of DC, there's these awesome pockets, right, that are stronger than other parts of the country. Like Michigan high school football just was not on the same level as Ohio high school football. And you can see that play out and where people were going. That's why you would have a situation where Joe Burrow wants to go be a Buckeye and be the four-string quarterback. Ironically enough, not a great example for this one because he did transfer into the SEC to LSU. But for most of the time, you have it.
Here you go. Here's a spin. Couldn't cut it in the Big Ten, but won in the SEC. Saban struggled at Michigan State. It was easy in the SEC. That's how you do it, bro. Come on, man. Didn't you get to check your email for the talking points?
A running back who wants to go play for Nick Saban at Alabama, Alvin Kamara, is the four-string running back, right, at Alabama, because that's a pipeline to the NFL. There's no reason to not go there. It's a big brand. I'm not going to get as many carries. I might have to sit behind Derrick Henry or Mark Ingram or all these other guys. But now you're seeing a situation where another school can come in and say, wait, but we'll actually pay you money now. Forget going to the NFL. We'll pay you money now, and you can leave and come help our team. And that talent is being dispersed across the country. And you've seen that these last couple of years with people making the argument that when paying players was against the rules, the SEC dominated. And now you have big money figures like Mark Cuban donating to Indiana, right? Larry Ellison donating to Michigan to flip Bryce Underwood. You have that in play. And I just want to say, like, one, more parity in the sport these last couple of years, I think has been a positive. I think it has been healthy for the sport. I think seeing the biggest money guy, like Elon Musk has all the money in the world and he happens to be whatever fan of ACC school or whatever and donates to that. I don't think that necessarily is healthy for the sport. And that's not going to be fixed until we get some sort of collective bargaining agreement. Unfortunately, that's where I think Greg Sankey needs to be forward thinking. And he is. All this stuff we're talking about, he's talking about every single day of his life. And he needs to be on the phone because the big money guys, and Jake, some of them, Blaine, some of them, they're tired of giving their money.
Man, of course Sankey wants this shit fixed. He's like, damn, ain't no phone. The rabbit got the gun. Hell yeah. Sankey's out there asking everybody to follow the rules like they weren't scummy for like 20 years. I mean, the SEC run of dominance came from copying what the U had in the early 2000s to keep it a beam.
Right, when there's no return on investment at a time when you're actually able to profit share too. And they're saying, well, why am I going to pay another $10 million for you to get a defensive end when I'm not really seeing the return on investment with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything. You better produce results when people are giving you money. You can't. This is the thing. You can't Ponzi scheme your way through this. Like, there's because you got to play it on the field for everybody and God to see. And to Cone again to kind of
now there's like a bigger playoff. You don't get to like hide in your conference and then not have to go through other teams in the postseason too. That's what I think is not being talked about as enough.
To piggyback off what you were saying, I agree 100% that the structure that the Big Ten, I think, has started to put around itself. And you look
also, like, it is funny, like, even like in the SEC's heyday, like schools like Texas A&M like came into the conference immediately and was like really good. Missouri came into the conference immediately really good. I mean, a team who couldn't really dominate at all in the Big 12, Texas, came into the conference and they were like one of the favorites early on. And a team like Oklahoma came into the conference and they looked really sharp as well. So it is wild that, like, for as much of a gauntlet and how tough it all is, it's like none of it didn't really matter for teams that were new and kind of getting it rolling. And also Pat Fitzgerald better than most coaches in the SEC. Just want to put that out there.
Look at Pat Fitzgerald's at Michigan State now. Like I think he's going to be a problem with what I know he knows and what Bielema has done at Illinois to bring them up again. And Ferentz have been doing for 1,000 years at Iowa, and there's some others as well. But Blaine, it just feels like the SEC right now was the hottest girl all 4 years of high school. Then she goes to college, gets that freshman 15.
Oh no.
Got a little gut, but hey, this summer we're putting the Jillian Michaels tape in.
Horrible analogy, but that is the Zach Smith imprint on college media.
All right, we're gonna get back on our. How did they get back there? They just pop the tape in, and Greg's saying you just got to go, just run around.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you have to find better coaching, and I think you need to find more money. I mean, to be honest, at the end of the day, look, one, it's hard to compete with oil money. Like, it really is. It's hard to compete with Oregon and Phil Knight. Like, and I think when the
Here we go. It's not the oil money or the Phil Knight money that's the scary problem right now. It's the up north talent and coaching. I know they want to talk about the oil money and all that, but it's like the three teams from the Big Ten that have been kind of wrecking the SEC. Indiana, they don't really have oil money. They've got Cuban now, but they're doing it with just kind of development and coaching. Michigan, say what you will, cheating, not cheating. It wasn't. That was before the Ellison kind of bag started thumping a little bit, and then Ohio State. And you know how we live it.
SEC, and this might sound crazy, and maybe I'm wrong when I say this, but maybe you need to adjust your expectations a little bit. Like, you really do. Like, if you're Alabama,
Really?
look, it's not going to look the same. It's just not. It's just not. You're in a whole different world now, and I promise you, most of it.
Have you got? I'm gonna play there's like a Cars thing. It's like when Lightning McQueen gets passed up by the new car is what this is. That's what's happening right now. Like, the SEC is Lightning McQueen if you want it, and we are the new car.
Obviously, you need coaching, you need structure, and you need culture. But a lot of this comes down to money. This isn't a surprise that Texas Tech made it to the playoffs this year, right? There's a reason why they did. They're number one in the transfer portal, and
Money can get you to the playoffs. Coaching wins you games in the playoffs.
they have an absolute bag. They have an unlimited bag that they can reach in and get where you want it. This isn't
Unlimited bag, and they scored 0 points. Money can get you there, but what wins is good coaching.
oh, well, look, it's Alabama, it's Nick Saban. I'm going there because of that logo. The brand doesn't matter really to me anymore. It doesn't. It matters how much money can I get, and then I'm going to go play there.
Does
right?
Indiana offset that a little bit with what they're doing? Does what Kirk Cignetti doing right now with no 5-star players? Because if you
Tell him that yes, talent can get you to the postseason, but coaching wins you games in the postseason. Tell him.
have more money, you're just going to go get more of the best players and more of those 5 stars. Does what he's doing right now in terms of developing 3 and 4-star recruits and the culture, does that sort of show the SEC, okay, yes, we need to spend a lot of money to get great rosters. We've known that, but also like we need to develop this talent to get back on top of it.
Well, like what I'm interested in, Cone, I want to see this through a 5-year span. Because I want to see if Cignetti's going to keep going about it this way. Because now you got the bread. You showed proof of concept for 2 years. Like, I don't want to have to put together the helicopter out of scraps in my garage. I'd rather just go work at Lockheed Martin. You know what I'm saying?
That's a great saying.
Yeah, and it's, well, you know why. But when you look at what Cignetti will do from here, now that Indiana's doing what they're doing, does he go get the 5 stars and try?
They just skated off of Cone's point entirely. Makes me think they're not capable of having a dialogue about that.
And develop them. Because my thinking would be, well, if I can develop this 3 or 4 star, imagine if I got a bunch of 4 and 5 stars and we kept the culture the same. But it could also screw it up. Maybe you were able to develop those guys because they did get it out of the mud. Maybe you're able to develop those guys because they weren't the most highly touted. You're just going to sprinkle a couple 5 stars on a 3.5 star cupcake, Blaine.
I think it's just 2 things that I think Cignetti has done really well. One, I mean, obviously they're not the most talented team, but they are talented. And 2, you're bringing in guys with a lot of experience. A lot of experience.
They're old. It's like
basketball. I really think that matters. Look, I know it's great.
This is a crutch. Be careful.
See a 5-star young kid run around a wide receiver, but sometimes taking that 3-star who's 24 years old, who's been through the mix, and now you're developing him. Maybe that's a difference. The scariest thing in the world to me right now, if you're college football, if you give Kirk Cignetti the actually keys to the kingdom and he can go pick guys who he wants with talent that are 4 and 5 stars, and then see what Indiana does. But I think they've done a great mix of finding talent, finding experience, and finding guys who want it. And I think at the end of the day, like it's like fishing. Right? You know where your fishing hole is. You know where your spot is to go catch that bass. You know how the water moves. You know how the wind works. You know where the fish are. And Kirk Cignetti has found that pond, and he's going to keep fishing in that pond. The only thing I know is those fish are going to keep getting bigger and bigger, and they're going to want to come to that pond. Hell, I want to go to that pond.
Yeah, well, you better catch that bass or they're going to fire your ass. So that's how it works now in these 2-year cycles.
Well, again, when Kirby went back-to-back, we thought he might win 8 in a row.
Yeah.
You know, and there's just no givens in this sport, which I think is a good thing. And one, I want to clarify.
Jesus, can we like keep on track for 1 point? Holy shit.
1 point on the high school point I made. It's not to say there aren't great football players that come from.
He didn't listen to anything those two were saying, which is fair. They didn't listen to him, and then they kind of responded with their,
From every state has a great football player or great football players that come out of their state every single year. I'm just talking about with the level of organization at the high school level and the dedication to the high school football. That's just different in Alabama and Georgia and Louisiana than it is in other parts of the country.
And I think high school recruiting, I don't even know how much it matters anymore. To be honest, I mean, who
Well,
really
at
wants?
some positions, yeah.
Yeah, who really wants to go get? I mean, a high school kid when you can get a guy in the portal who's doing it for 3 years.
Or
you
like
know
a
exactly
kicker.
what you're gonna
Or
get.
like a kicker. Why do you want to go recruit a high school
Yeah.
kicker who you don't know if his game will translate to college when you can maybe go get the best kicker in the MAC every year to transfer or something?
Yeah. No, it's changed the way you go about putting a roster together. But anything else you guys want to add here?
Big day for Ukraine, right? Big day for you.
Yeah. Find
Yeah.
out what the gender of, which I don't even know if we've announced this yet.
Not bad, not great. It's always funny, and you know I do think there's an issue with like coming up with original thoughts when like doing shows, and maybe that happens like when you're corporate. But no, I've been in corporate meeting rooms. It's never been like that. It does feel like they try to do like they all try to be like their own version of Josh Pate, just not as good. And maybe that's on purpose. Maybe that's what On3 wants. Maybe that's a part of this new college football ecosystem. I don't really know. I'm still kind of working through it, but I just. Yeah, not bad. Not a bad discussion. I wish there was more debate and there was more like laying out points instead of just like, oh, I've got this. Oh, I've got this. Oh, I've got this, which works. Like, it was a decent show. When you have a 3-person panel, you would like to have some actual dialogue, and you could tell that they do the thing that instead of like listen to one another like thoroughly. Actually, here we go.
Tell them, son.
These two listen to each other pretty thoroughly. He doesn't listen to them, and they don't listen to him. So while they're talking, the other one just working on their next point. It kind of shows. But anyway, make sure you like and sub. I'll be back with some more stuff. I'm working on some more like NIL, Learfield, Ohio State research that'll probably be dropping at some point in the next couple days. So be on the lookout.